Okay, here we are. Good morning. It's our Dev Talk Show morning hour-ish.
Sometimes
Uh,
more, sometimes less.
sometimes more, sometimes less. And it's 7:49 a.m. Eastern Time, U.S. Eastern Time. It's June 27th, 2023. That's what I was looking for. You know, when we do these earlier, my brain has to search for things like, what's the date?
Yeah.
Every time I watch back our shows, even the old shows, I always see myself looking down at the Windows calendar or the widget down there.
And it's funny, I pulled up the one we did, I guess 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point, because it was June 13th. And I
Yeah.
think that might have been one of the first ones when we got back together. Like, oh, Chris has the date at the beginning. I know exactly when it was. So that was easy.
Yeah. That's true. So a couple shows ago, we were talking about GitHub and the Windows, the credential manager support in GitHub. And you specifically were trying to solve a problem, which I'm, it's one that I think a lot of people have, which is I am on one machine. It's one that multiple. Oh, now I'm getting some feedback. Is that me or
Yeah,
you?
that's me. Sorry.
Okay. No, it's okay. It's one that I think a lot of people have, which is I'm on my machine and I am going to have to access multiple GitHub accounts. Could be one for work, could be one for, I don't know, whatever, school. Who knows?
Yeah.
So it can be confusing to understand, like if you go into Git and you use it the first time and you set that configuration of your email address and so on, you don't realize that you can set that per project, which is, I think, kind of where you landed, was set it per project, define in the project, in the Git config, like what credential you want to be used in each project. But that also led us to an exploration of how those credentials are stored in Windows if you clone HTTPS, which I think a lot of Windows people do. That's changing, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
It's a good question. I don't know that usually when you think about cloning, you go right to that. Here's the code thing. You drop down. The first thing you get is the URL. Right.
Yep.
That I've not seen many people go do anything other than that.
Yeah, I think so. I think the exception there, I just wanted to see that everything was going okay on our platforms here, and it looks like it is. I think the exception to that is, I think a lot of Linux folks reflexively would just reach out for the SSH option in Git. Like, I certainly know Linus would. Like, he invented the thing. I'm positive he would. I don't know Linus Torvalds, but I certainly try to channel his thoughts a lot when I think about Git. And a lot of what I base that on is some talks that I've watched him give on Git, and why did he even create it and stuff like that. We've talked about that on this show before. So in this case, I think that's what a lot of people do. And then you might get frustrated with the HTTPS support in Windows because what's not in any manual anywhere is that if for some reason your credential changes or something, you may have to go to a control panel applet that has been in Windows literally forever, but whoever has to use it. So it's like this foreign place to be to remove credentials from there so that they basically get re-added a little bit later. And we discovered that Git made a change like 2 years ago to require a certain credential manager that was in newer versions of Git. And the ironic thing was I was one version behind on my machine of where you needed to be. So that was an interesting adventure, and you can watch it on our YouTube channel. So that got me thinking about, I wonder if it would be interesting to talk about the native SSH client that is built into Windows and has been built in for some time. So let me share my screen here and show you where this is coming from. I've got a few sources here to look at. So this is something I wrote for myself years ago. And when I looked up my revision history on this, apparently I wrote this up on April 4th of 2020. So I just kind of wanted to make notes because I will figure this stuff out and then I'll never remember how to do it again. And it was just a note for myself. This is something I wrote for me using native open SSH client in Windows 10. And I even reminded myself of why I did this. And honestly, it probably would have made like a great blog post or something, because there are some blog posts. Like here's one from 2018, how to enable and use Windows 10's new built-in SSH commands. And this is pretty early. Everything is still in preview. So, I just wanted to walk through this. I even downloaded Putty, which maybe we'll install and see. But the best way to demonstrate all this and to see this in action is while you could use this for Git, like there's no doubt you could use this for Git. You could also use this to log into a Linux machine. And so in order to do that, we're going to need a Linux machine. And I don't know how long this is going to take to spin up, but this is the Dev Talk Show. So we're going to just try it live and see what happens. And what would have been really cool is if I had, and I bet you I have somewhere a command line for Azure, the AZ CLI, that would just be like AZ VM new, blah, 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 blah. I bet you I have that laying somewhere. But since I don't know what it is right now, I'm going to create a new resource group, just because my take on this is I can just delete the resource group later.
When you're done, yeah.
When I'm done, yeah. So we're going to say Linux temp VMs, because we all know that if you put temp in the name of anything, file, resource group, or whatever, then you in the moment you know that you're going to remember that it's safe to delete it.
Right.
But future you is going to question what past you was saying, and you're going to go, I don't know, maybe I should really double check. Can I really delete this? And so you're going to have a bunch of temp stuff forever and ever.
Right. So you'll see this in one of the tabs here, is that there's a tags section in Azure where you put, basic key value pairs,
and tag it.
I tag it, and demo only, right? And so it's fair game that when I'm looking to clean up resources to keep the bill down, that's what I get rid of first. I
got to admit, I don't even know what this is, but I may say standard here. This is an option that's somewhat new to me, security type. That'll be interesting to look at. It's already set up as Ubuntu server. That's fine. That's kind of exactly what I wanted. I don't know that I need the most massive one in the world. Not for this particular thing. So
yeah, up top is most used, and then if you scroll down and pick
woo, look at that, other sizes. Woo!
Yeah. If you scroll, let's go D series V3. Where are we with that? I mean, that's kind of what you were on.
Yeah, it's kind of what I was on. Non-premium storage. It didn't really change a whole lot, actually. So you know what? It didn't, like, for example, I couldn't come here and say, oh, that really cut it down. Again, I do have some credits that I get here. This isn't about the price tag. This is about getting a Linux machine going, and then we're going to chop it down a little bit later anyway. So, yeah. Okay, so authentication type, SSH public key. That's the key. That's the important thing here. So that's what we want. And then the username, oh, interesting, Azure user, generate the key pair, and the key pair name is Linux temp key, fine. I'm going to have to grab that and bring it down. And that's pretty much it. Wait, I need inbound ports 22 should be fine. That should be fine. Yeah, this looks like it's ready. I don't know that I really care too much about what's going on here, except I just absolutely do not need this to be premium.
Yeah. So premium's important if I think it even says it there around the SLA, right? You can have a single machine SLA with 99.9 SLA, but it's got to be on a premium disk.
Okay.
So
otherwise they don't support it.
If this machine fails over, we're fine.
Yeah. Nobody. The networking. So I'm going to hit review and create. I don't know if this is I'm going to want to let this sit for a while. You have set SSH ports open to the internet. They're like scary. Fair enough.
Warning.
Fair enough. They're not wrong. Yeah, I mean, they're not wrong. Just know what you're doing.
Yeah.
In this case, okay. Now look at this. Download cool. Private key and create resource. So they're going to put it, and this is what you want is the public key goes to the server, just like if you were to use this in Git, we would do the same thing. We would create a public private key pair, and we would store that. We would give that to GitHub, the public key. The private key is mine to keep. Private keys are always the super important ones because they can be used to impersonate or be you, essentially. And it's okay for me to be me. That's what I want, but I want to protect it. I don't want anyone else to do that. So it says download private key and create resource. So I'm going to go ahead and do this because I don't think I'm going to like dox my machine here. And yeah, here it is. Little PEM file, probably really impossible to see. Is my Zoom it going to work? Oh, look at that. Linux temp key PEM. Great. Awesome. So I think that's going to be a nice thing, and deployments in progress. In the meantime, let's take a look at some other things I found here. I don't know that I'm going to walk through these just because I've got my own instructions. With my luck, my instructions don't work anymore. But it looks like Microsoft Learn, the docs. We've got what is OpenSSH for Windows. We've got get started. Okay, cool. I actually would be very interested in running through these docs personally and just seeing, like, are they stale? If I try to use them, does it all work? And then, in case, because every once in a while I do find little things, and then I'll just go contribute, right? So let's try this. We will look at the why not git bash, but we don't have to do that right now. And then why not WSL? And quite frankly, this is a good option. This is a good option.
Okay. That was a question I asked you in the chat.
Yeah. Oh, did you? Yeah. In 2018, 2020, I don't remember when WSL2 really kind of hit the landscape and was like ready, so to speak. I just don't remember the timing there. And with WSL2, I will tell you, much better shape to just come in here. I just double check to see, like, is it installed? Like, oh, for example, let me see, like SSH add. If I do SSH add /L or -L, it's going to show me the keys I have on the machine. I don't actually know if I have any. And okay, so I haven't even started the authentication agent, but that's not hard. Funny thing about it is I used to know how to do this in Linux, like super easy. And now I've forgotten. In Windows, it's a Windows service. In Linux, is it just SSH fires it up? I don't think it does. So now let's do this. This is how long it's been. Starting open SSH in Linux, and it's going to be something stupid. What you can do is you can make it. Okay, here we go. Maybe I'm sure somebody watching this later is going to be like, no, just don't pick the first thing off of there. There are implications to how you've done it. And I actually think that's fine. I agree. I mean, I guess I could just... Sure. I know that I'm just sort of guessing here. No. Okay. So there is a way to do this. There is a way to do this in WSO. So we're going to try this way. We're going to try just launching it directly. And maybe not there. Maybe not. Really? Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it has to be installed. It's very possible it has to be installed. But hey, we're here to do this in Windows today. Now we have a topic for another show. So first, in Windows, you need to have the SSH agent service running. The SSH agent, same thing happens in the Linux world. There's an agent that needed to be running. There was a service, essentially, that needed to be running so that it'll hold keys, right? It'll do some other things like that. It's important to have, but it's a process that is running on your machine. And so part of my objection on the Windows side, which maybe if we have time, we'll get a look at, was was let's see, let's do this. Part of my objection was how that works in like the Git Bash client.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fine. So here we are. This is a PowerShell. I actually don't need to be logged into AZ, anything in Azure right here. So of course, let me misspell it first.
Okay, and we're seeing the web page and not your typing, just so.
Oh, really? That's true. That's true. So I need to get the whole screen up here. Thank you for saying that here. Let's stop the screen because I forgot. I need terminal too. So let's just do the whole screen. I did the web page initially because I was uncertain if I was going to.
Oh yeah.
So sorry, everybody missed the WSL stuff. I apologize for that. Okay, so the first thing is let's just see the status of this service. Service is called SSH agent, and it's stopped. The open SSH authentication agent. The start type is manual. Okay. So the other thing that my document does say is you have to install, or you might have to install, this open SSH client feature. I think in the early days of this was not. This is a Windows feature. So in other words, instead of something like you go install, uninstall, you add the capability, and in PowerShell you can do that with this. But I think that in modern times here, this might be ready to go. So let's see. If I say add, remove, can add remove programs get me there? Maybe. And I'm on apps. Is there apps and features? Here we go, optional features. Oh, and then of course here comes, there was a little bit. So the open SSH client is already here. I'm pretty, nice. And one of the things I did check before we started was, did I do this on this machine already? And I'm pretty sure the answer is no, because we already saw that the service is on the machine. Here it is. This is the feature that gets it on the machine, the open SSH client, but it's turned off. It's stopped. So if you don't want to go searching for this, you can always run this little bit of PowerShell that I have, and it's good. Then I had a little bit of PowerShell to say, well, can you show me its current status, which we looked at ourselves. It is, the start type is manual, but it's still stopped. What I could do now is if I wanted it to start with Windows, I could change that startup type and make it automatic forever. If I don't feel like using command line, this is just the services commandlet. And I would go find it and I would change this to automatic. But for today, let's just start the service by saying start service SSH agent. Let's do that. And then I can double check the status real quick, and it's running, and that's cool. So now that it's running, now that the service is running, I can start using the same commands I would have used with OpenSSH in Linux, like SSH add --L. And it says, well, you've just really only got one key here. This is like the private key that represents my machine.
Okay.
But we're not going to create new ones. We're going to register in a way. I'm going to use the word register. You could also say add. We're going to add to our keyring the file that we just got from Azure, when Azure basically said, hey, let's see if it's done. I have created a VM for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a public private key pair that they generated for me. I don't have to let them generate it for me. I could create a public private key pair here and then go push the public key over there.
Yep.
Keep the private key that represents me. They made that somewhat easier, and they sent me the private key, and then they said, they pinky swore, like, we didn't keep it. But we did go ahead and enable login with the public key just to keep it simple. So that's cool. I'm going to have to go to the resource because I'm going to have to find out just how to get to this machine. Here's a public IP address. Awesome. So now let's go find that file. I'm not going to open it, just in case anybody's wondering if I'm going to let everybody log into my Linux box. So here we go. We've got Linux temp, might be kind of small. That's super awesome. Linux temp underscore key dot pem is what they did for me. That's cool. Now since I know this is sitting in downloads, I'm going to do a little file explorer trick. And there is a copy as path is one of these. Here we go. Copy path. So boom, now I have the path. When I come back to terminal, I'm just going to right click to make sure. Yep, that's sitting in clipboard. Sitting there, no problem. Head back over to my directions just because I want to see. It says, okay, adding an authentication key. Now that this agent is running, you can utilize SSH add to add a private key, to add private key based identities to a secure store. After you've done this, you could delete the private key from the machine if you wanted to. Like if you don't want it living on the machine, you could go put it somewhere safe with an air gap.
Okay.
I think a lot of people maybe just don't know that. Like once it's registered, it's still on the machine. It's just somewhere where it's being managed by OpenSSH.
Okay.
So because whenever I'm talking about how to do something, my brain never remembers how to do it. So here we go. We're going to go SSH add, and let's add this in. And oh, look at this. I have to do more stuff. Really? Oh, okay. It is required that your private key files are not accessible by others. I have to admit that I don't remember it doing this before. So very interesting.
So now you've got to put a password on the PEM file.
Well, I'm saying more that I don't think it likes the Windows permissions.
Oh.
And it's been a while since I've done this. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just create a quick, and I'll do it in the GUI. I'm going to create a quick folder here. I'm going to call it SSH keys, and let's just pop it because I don't plan on keeping this. Move the file here. Wow, this is going to be some old school stuff. Let's go to properties. Let's hit security.
Oh, man.
Yeah, look at like who's done this, right? And is this not restrictive enough is what it's complaining about. Yeah. So let's get rid of users. Users.
It was complaining about the authenticated users.
What are they saying? Try removing permissions for authenticated users. Ah, this one. Okay, sure. Whatever you say, Windows. Oh, you can't remove it because it's inheriting permissions from its parent. You must prevent
break inheritance.
And try removing. Okay, sure. And where is that again? To change permissions for special permissions. Oh, well, let's go to advanced, of course. Because this is advanced. So convert inherited permissions into explicit permissions. Okay. There's some new features in here that I don't remember from the olden days. So let's remove this. And I actually kind of feel like I don't need users either because I am an administrator. So famous last words. Let's try this. Let's try this. No such file or directory. Oh, because I moved it. So, you know, I don't have permissions to access this folder. Why don't we just wait? Yeah. How about that? How about that? I don't have permissions to access this folder, but we know the path. So I'm going to try this. Identity added. Woohoo! Look at that. So interesting. Well, so here's the thing. PowerShell is just saying, look, I don't want users on the machine to just go willy-nilly looking around for private keys. So if I'm managing this thing, then you got to take permissions away. And I will tell you right now, you didn't see that in my instructions. So I promise you didn't have to do this before. This is something that was added. Interesting, though. I think it's interesting. I actually fully believe that I can remove/delete this public key, but I'm not going to do that just because if I've made a mistake, then I'm going to want to have it to re-add.
The private key.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. This file.
Right. From your system.
I wrote in the documentation, you don't need this file.
Yeah.
At least you don't need it on your system. You got to be very careful. So here it is. And it's like, yep, okay, sure. It's interesting, though, that it is showing the path. I don't know. Maybe we can play around with that in a little bit. So now that I've done that, it turns out that's actually the magic trick. Ta-da! The SSH is set up. But we're going to log in. Okay. So this is reminding myself what I want to do. In my case, I don't necessarily need tunneling, but why is that useful? What if you're going to do some web development on that machine and you want to test locally, right? This is just like if you're using a code space or even dev tunnels or ngrok. You're essentially just setting up an SSH tunnel. It's super awesome. They had it before we did. Yay. Actually, and I think you could tunnel in Windows, but like what Windows user would ever have done it ever? So the point is that I knew I would forget that command line. So here it is. But I think in my demo from the days past, I think what I do is I throw an Nginx web server on there and Nginx, and then throw a website that uses 4443 for SSL, SSL connections, TLS, and 8888 for non. And then what I do is I tunnel it back so that way I can hit this in my browser, right?
Right.
But I don't think I need any of that. So what I do need is, oh shoot, I need the login name, which I'm trying to remember what it was called. It was like Azure user, I think. So let's SSH. Obviously, I need the real IP address, and I am going to. I don't think there's anything here. Nope, the IP address. I think I can show that screen from the portal. Let me take another good look. Let's go get this IP address in here. There it is. Now everybody knows, but don't worry, you shouldn't be able to log in. And I want to double check on identity. Does it have it listed? Is it showing it to me? User assigned, system assigned. No, that's not the same thing. I was looking at the identity tab. That's not the same thing.
So if you want to know, I think what you're trying to get to is what was the username that was.
What if I forgot? Yeah.
Yeah. So you can find it by typically by going into the deployment on that deployed your VM. Yeah. And it's often, especially if you supplied it, it's going to be in there as a property and you can see it.
Okay. Let's see first if I remembered that it was Azure user.
That sounds like you got rid of your IP.
Oh, well, that's good. Who wanted to do that?
That sounds like the new default. So
well, there you go. So what did I get? Let's make this a little bigger. Open SSH for Windows, blah, 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 a bunch of debug stuff. Now it's saying, listen, I can't establish that this is very much like we can certainly learn from these folks. And when I say this, I learn, we're only 25 years behind or so. They're basically telling you, listen, I connected to 104.2.11.48.224, but I don't know that that's the machine you think it is. Mm-hmm. So I'm giving you the fingerprint, which I think we can go look up again in the portal.
Okay.
This is my chance to say, is that right? And then I say yes, and it goes okay, and it's going to save it forever and ever and ever after that. So I'm going to say yes. And I think I could just hit Y. And here we go. Look at this. I mean, this is it. I'm in. I know it's not super exciting because it's just SSH, but welcome to Ubuntu 20.04.6. And I'm at the command line. I'm Azure user at Linux temp. I'm in my home directory. And I mean, that's it. You know, it's I don't know. I don't know if you think it's anticlimactic, but here we are. And we're doing this in PowerShell. I could also do this from command prompt.
Yeah.
In fact, why not? Why not? Let's I say that.
Is that using that same OpenSSH service?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Because remember that service is it's a Windows service.
Yeah.
So there it is. Everything still works. And I mean, you know, why not show it? Because that's what we do.
Azure user. There you go.
And I think it was -L. Sure was. There it is. Same thing. So ta-da. And it's odd. Yeah, go ahead.
You can also do, if you have VS Code and you have the dev
Oh, yes.
plugins,
Right.
there's a remote SSH there that lets you do
Right.
the same thing.
And here's where I actually now, so you're like, what's the use of this? Here's where I think it is interesting. We talk a lot on this show about containers.
Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot about how I love firing up. If you've got a project with the dev container stuff filled in up in GitHub, you can start a code space, and boom, you're going to get a code space with all your stuff, blah, blah, blah. But what if, let's just go with a what if scenario, you can't start any more code space instances, or you just frankly want a box that you control. Maybe it's more powerful, maybe it's less powerful, maybe you just don't want to, you don't want to pay for that service, but you don't mind the hosting you have. It could be on site at work, it could be in Azure like I've just done. I'm sorry, but despite what your corporate folks might say, even this little server that I've spun up here, you could save yourself a couple bucks by shutting it down every time you quit for the day, but pretty economical to hand to your developers when you consider the cost of, I don't know, a Teams call amongst 10 people that you've invited, the Teams meeting that could have been an email that now costs the company, I don't know how much. No, and then you could throw Docker on here and now use the Visual Studio Code SSH stuff to just jump into it, and it's a ton of flexibility. So that's pretty much it. That's interesting. I actually don't know what that is.
What's that?
That I did not put that in the screen right now. So basically, what's happening is it's logging out like some kind of ping, which now somebody maybe later will tell me what that was, which is fine. How about clear? There we go. So next question is like, when we kind of look at the old-fashioned way that people did this, is almost universally, if you were a Windows user, and I'm going back to some old hacker style days, where I needed to get to a box, and so I would SSH and I would use PuTTY. Now, just in case somebody can learn from this, I'm going to try installing PuTTY, which I haven't done for a few years. I'm just going to try installing it here. This is one of the most famous early open source projects for Windows that I can remember. Like, older than dirt, ran on Windows 3.1, and it's still super important today. So now this, and look at that cute install screen. Like, it doesn't it feel like, I think this stuff still, this could have been in Windows 3.1 or something. Just that is such an old look for the computer icons. So let's just try it, right? Because I want people to see, I want the youngins to see how we did it, and we liked it. We had our PuTTY and we liked it. So here we go. Oh, look, the README. How cute. Oh, we had the README. It's so awesome. Now, do I remember how to use this? I don't know. So let's try. Look, there it is. I love. Oh, look at this. Some really cool advice here. I forget that PuTTY has an installer. Yeah. And I probably could have done that. You're probably right. I literally went to the PuTTY website. This is how I did this morning. PuTTY.org. Download PuTTY. Sounds good to me. I said, oh, look, installer, sounds good to me. And I just called it a day. But yeah, Sudoku is absolutely right. Look at this. I could have just done this, but that's okay. Built in. If you haven't seen this before, check this out. PuTTY configuration comes up first. Ta-da! What I've got to do is I've got to add a server, and so I'm going to put that host name in, which maybe still in my clipboard. Let's see. Oh, look at that! It still is, and I'm pretty sure that I have to tell it the keys. I have to tell it where the key is. I'm almost positive of this. I could be wrong. Let's, in fact, try not doing it, because it may get to just take advantage of the built-in service. So now that I goofed this up, and I don't think I actually added the host. I'm almost positive that I did not actually add the host. I was starting to, and then, oh, look at this. Now I'm totally lost as to where this is to add a session. Okay. So default settings sound good to me. Let's try open and let's just see what happens. I don't know. The host key is not cached for the server. So here in Windows E dialog, it's telling you the same thing that it told us in command line world. It's like, look, do you want to double check the computer is what you think it is? And if so, let's add it to the cache. I'm going to go ahead and say accept. That was the exact same thing we did a second ago. It's saying here, oh, to log in? Okay, fine. Log in Azure user. I've got to tell it what user, and no supported authentication methods. Okay, so I think that was basically Putty telling me. Now I got to figure out how to bring up the Putty options. Oh boy, and I've forgotten all of this. So I've forgotten all of this. So, okay. You need this. Connection types SSL. I know that I have to add a key. And I don't think it's host keys. Oh, host keys or fingerprints to accept. No, this is not it. This isn't it. This is, I got to tell it my keys. And here's the problem. I'm just not going to remember. I'm just not going to remember today. Auth, credentials, private key file for authentication. Hold on. Okay. So it's a good thing I kept this file around that it's not going to let me have access to. At least I'm pretty sure that what's going to happen. I don't know that I can't show this. I think I'm okay. I'm not going to use this. I'm not going to use this key for anything ever again. Right. Well, first of all, I got to find my way back in here, even though I probably could have just sent the command line in. Oh, and look, there's nothing in here because you're just a lowly user. Oh, but it's a PPK file. That's right. I might have to convert this to a PPK. I don't know that I can use a PEM. I don't know that I can. Oh, hold on. Oh, yeah. It's complaining. It's like, oh, what are you doing? Yeah, I can't use key file. I think that this isn't going to work. So we probably could figure this out. I mean, maybe
about a half hour.
Yeah, maybe we could figure this out. But let's see. Basic options for your Putty session. I could create a new key. I could convert a PEM to a PPK. Can't I do that? Convert PEM to PPK. All right. Look at this. You got to love the world we live in. Do you remember the old days, Rich, when, and of course, this is going to be like, who knows? Look at all these ads on this site. So we know that we know this is a trustworthy site for several reasons. All the ads, the glowing green start and continue and download buttons that are begging me to click on them.
Right, because they can help us.
Yeah, they can help us if I click start or if I click continue, and who knows what that's downloading.
Right.
So, oh, I love this. I love how this ad tries to convince me that this is how I should start doing this. Wow, what a terrible world we live in. So, I need Putty Gen. Okay. Putty Gen. Putty key generator. All right. Load in. Is it going to be load in existing private key file? Yeah. Next, click on the option load. So we know that it was sitting in /SSH keys. And I have to change the little drop down here for all files and pick the PEM. Successfully imported foreign key. To use this key with Putty, you need to use the save private key command to save it in Putty's format. Okay. Well, then let's do it. Let's do it. Save the generated key. Save. Are you sure you want to save it without a passphrase? I'm going to say yes.
All right.
I don't like the do as I say, not as I do. I'm not I think that's something we're all kind of learning from, but I'm
Sure.
going to say it out loud. Like, I don't want to make people feel like this is a best practice. It's not. I should really put a passphrase in. So let's just call this Azure user because I don't care. And now it should be saved on my system. So now, and I saved it in the same, you probably saw I saved it in the same spot in that C : /SSH keys. Not sure that that's super important. Let's go see what we say now. Private key for authentication. Here it is. Let's click open. Yep. Now is our SSH session still the same? Where was that again? Connection. It was in, there was a place where I basically said where we were going. Session, that's what it was. Okay, and we need to say that the host name goes here, and you can, and I'm actually probably going to, I think I can save this. I can save this session. I know this is a little old school UI, so I can save this session to say Azure VM, and now when I click save, now I've got a session I can come back to where this is saved, and that the fact that I'm using this key is saved, so that I won't have to keep doing that again and again. And I think I could have also put the username in so I don't have to type it here, but I'm going to anyway. And there it is. It worked. Look at that. Woo. But wow. Talk about the nice small font size. I'm sure that's configurable. But here we are. This is it.
That's awesome.
We're in once again. Yeah. And I just want to double check if so this is for folks who are younger. You can go to Putty, you can say load, and now I want to look at window appearance. Let's take a look here. Change the font. Look at that 10-point font. Are they crazy? Let's change that to 18 because I'm old. And I don't want to use Courier New like we are an advanced species. Let's use Cascadia code 18.
There you go.
And then this is something you had to do every time. See, this is all coming back to me. Is I want to save the session because I have changed features. Boom, open. Oh, I didn't put in that login feature. I want to do that. So let's do one more. Do that one more time. So load the session. Then the one other thing I wanted was connection, SSH. There's somewhere here where I can say what the username is. Oh, but where is it? Was it here? No. Oh, wouldn't it be awesome if I remembered? Somebody's saying in chat, I bet, and I'm not even seeing
Not
it.
yet, I'm looking.
Oh, are you?
You get that bit of a delay too. There's that.
Go back to the Putty page. Uh-oh.
Well, that was with all the warnings.
And the warnings. Okay. No, I was thinking like, wait, what is she warning me about? Because what have I done? But fortunately, I can delete this session later. You know what? I'm just not going to remember. It looks like there's a place where I can say, I wonder if this is it. Plugin to provide authentication responses. I wonder if there's something to this where I say like show Azure user. I'm sure that's not it. Oh yeah. It totally blew up. It totally didn't do anything I wanted. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna just bag that and say that I'm pretty sure that you can add the credentials you want and load that session and open. And the first thing it's doing. So what you saw what we did at command line. We said SSH-L, put in the username. This is essentially what I'm doing here. Like that's what I'm doing here. And ta-da, and that's it. And then now I got at least a larger font.
Yeah,
so I can actually go to work. I can actually do something. And just to be silly about this, here I am in my home folder. Let's create a code folder. I might have to that's not Windows, Chris. Let's so we've got Maker and then Let's create a new file. So to create a new file, I can cat cat hello world to hello world dot text, right? And maybe not. How about
Did you,
what did I do wrong there? What am I thinking? I feel like I've done this before, but that I'm forgetting how to do it. I could also do this, right? I could just do this. And so I have a hello world.txt, and then I could, I could be totally dangerous and do this. And I could say, hello, everybody. Everybody, hello, it's cool. And now it's all over because I don't remember how to exit.
you got to reboot.
Yeah, I have to reboot the machine. There's
It's :Q, right?
yeah, but I want to save it too. So is it like
It'll prompt
QW?
you.
Oh, echo. Look at Sudoku had the answer for me. :Q, fine. Oh, that's not it. And I'm in
WQ exclamation.
I'm in insert mode right now. See that at the bottom?
Yeah.
So I'm in
WQ
insert.
exclamation point.
Okay. So cat was to let's echo it out, like she said. My brain is killing. Okay, so there we go. Oh no, that just echoes the text that I wanted. All right. She's giving me all kinds of cool stuff in here. Don't ask me why I remember the Z's. It's absurd enough that I've altered it. So what Sudoku was saying is I could have created a file this way, which she's right. Like I could have said echo. Hi there. I think this is correct. Hello world 2.txt. Funny thing about it is if you give me a little bit of time, I actually begin to really enjoy working this way again. But it's like I just sort of have to, like, my brain just has to switch. And then I'm thinking, it's not, why is it not cat? Yeah, maybe I goofed. Maybe we goofed when we created the first file. So it's possible, because see how for displaying hello world, I'm getting nothing. And for displaying hello world 2, I'm getting stuff. So there we go. We created a file. There's only one reason I wanted to do that, frankly, is I wanted to go back to this session here, and who knows what's going on with this. I'm gonna have to look that up, why it just keeps logging stuff out. I bet you it's something silly. I don't remember that before though. So now let's look, and there's that code folder. That was the point, was that yes, it is the same machine. Like it really is. I wasn't kidding. And it really is the same machine, and I can really cat hello world 2.txt out, and there it is. So ta-da. And now here's this. Here's, I know this might make people sad, but I would most likely open Nano because this is just kind of me. And a lot of people say like, oh, you didn't use Vim. You're not a real developer. And it's like, yeah, I hear you. I got it. But I am editing text files. Does that count? And write the file out. And oh, I love this. And then exit, and okay. Thank you. I really appreciate. Thanks for giving me the permission. I really do. And a great question. Why not Emacs? I don't know. Is it here? Is it on the machine? No, but I guess I could install it. But now that begs an interesting question. There's a difference between like your client and your server. And so now that I'm like, is it that I want to install Emacs? Is it that I want to install Emacs on the server, or what I really want to do is use Emacs as a client on my client? I have it installed on my client, and then say, go show me that file over on the server, right? But it could be that I'm just getting punked a little bit here, mostly because their commands are as funky as Vim. The thing about Nano, and it's so weird how habits form. I learned about Nano in college in our Sun Spark lab, where in order to do your like like homework assignments for the computer class that I did take in college, which was a class on Ada. It was on Ada. You went to the Sun Spark lab and you typed and then you saved it somewhere in you saved it somewhere in your user folder, and then you had to like run it. And when you ran it, you sent it to the printer because the teacher was going to go look at your printout. And so then you had to go to the person who was the gatekeeper of the printings, who the little feed was coming through the printer, and then when it would always preface anything that you sent to the printer with a big, huge ASCII version of your name and when you printed this and whatever. And then they would rip it off and burst it. Well, actually, maybe they burst it. I don't know if in college they burst it. I think if you paid for the printer time, then they probably would burst it for you, which is just stripping. I use these old terms, stripping the
tractor feed.
The tractor feed stuff. I had one of those printers. I had a dot matrix printer at home, or maybe a lot of us did. And then they put it in a box. Now, because I was at college, I didn't have my own box. I was not like a postdoc. And I actually don't know if the computer science undergrads got their own box. But I mean, it was such ceremony. They would like go put it in a box, and then they would go write on a chalkboard, Chris Gomez 72, so that I would know that he put it in that box. And then I would go up. I'd have to go up to him or her. I guess it was unfortunately mostly hims, and say, so I'm Chris Gomez. And they'd be like, okay. And then they would look at the board. You're in 72. And it's like, I saw all of this already.
Right.
So anyways, the question that inevitably comes up now is this still useful? And this is public. So I'm actually happy to add it to our chat. It's not a big deal. Is this still useful? Is it useful to have the native Open SSH client available to you in PowerShell? I think my answer would probably be like, it took nothing more than a second to set up. So sure, like why not?
Right.
I could certainly come here to, now this is WSL, very easy to install on Windows nowadays. WSL is quite frankly pretty awesome. We've done shows where we're using the WSL2's graphical features to basically like, it's a total mind bender. Install Visual Studio Code on that server and then run it like locally. We'll install it on WSL2 and then run it, and then a window pops up.
Yeah.
The best demo for this is probably GIMP, the very famous photo editor, because you're not going to find a Windows version of that, or at least that's not true, but you're not going to install a Windows version of that, I don't think. So instead, go install it on your WSL2 instance and then run it, and boom, it pops up and you're in Windows, but it's a Linux terminal, cats and dogs living together, you know. Suzuki's like, I install GIMP. I install it every day. It's my favorite. Look at this. Look at this. Super awesome. We found, and this is great. I figured that we'd find like one of the 4 people that were installing GIMP and using it in Windows, and that's awesome. No, yeah. I'm not saying anything negative against GIMP. Just my reflex action is this new Windows box install pate.net. That's just a reflex action. But you can do it. You can do it, and it's kind of a cool experience. So couldn't I just install OpenSSH here? And yes, I could. Right. And then I could just say, well, every time I'm going to SSH into something, I'll drop into WSL and I'll do it. And that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. For whatever reason in 2020, I said to myself, I want a better experience than going and installing PuTTY. Like, I think I even said here, using PuTTY is just so Windows, you know? It's just so Windows. So to answer the question from Greenish Pepper, is GIMP similar to OpenSSH? No, GIMP is, and we could probably search for it. I have to believe that this is going to be a very, very quick thing. So GIMP is an extremely, like, popular. Oh wow, look at the homepage. This is so un-GIMP like, frankly. The GNU image manipulation program. This is like Photoshop.
Yeah.
In Windows developers or users often know about paint.net, which I know is at getpaint.net, I believe. So paint.net, which is a very Photoshop, these are both open source. You can download paint.net and you can just put it on your machine, or you can also buy paint.net from the Windows Store, which a lot of people are like, well, why would I buy it if I could just download it? The author of paint.net has said, like, hey, if you buy it from the Windows Store, at least I get like a cup of coffee or something. Or you can also show your appreciation by donating, because like I bet you I've been using this for over 20 years. I bet you I have. And so anyways, here it is, the famous GNU image manipulation program. I would have lost a bet on what GIMP stands for, but it's very famously used on Linux, even though there are versions for Mac and Windows.
Yeah.
I just think that, yeah, go ahead.
No, I think that's a funny point, because as Sudoku points out in the chat, actually able to get GIMP from the Windows Store. So WSL and the various different types of, whether it's Ubuntu or Debian or whatever you might be using, all of those, surprisingly, you can download right out of the Windows Store.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So I'm on Windows. I need to switch to Linux. I think what's really neat is we live in a time now, an amazing time, where you can install Ubuntu from the Windows Store, use it in Windows Terminal, and and in my opinion, if you're coming from Windows, like, you can dip your toe in the water, get started, get comfortable, start to get fast, and then even you could follow all kinds of tutorials. You can do all kinds of things, and then say to yourself, I think I'm ready for a Linux box. And then what you do is you go find like some old hardware, and not because I'm picking on Linux for old hardware. It's just that you can get a distribution that doesn't require a whole lot of resources, and say, let me install it native there. Or you can do what I like to do, but I will say that I only like to do this because it's useful for our shows, things like that, is to use Oracle's VirtualBox. You can also use Hyper-V built right into Windows. And I've got like a Linux Mint distribution, a Kali Linux distribution. I can fire it up. I can save snapshots. So like usually what will happen is just before we came on the show, I would like save a snapshot so that way I usually would save a snapshot of the project finished. Like, hey, this is everything working, just in case we can't get it working. And then go back to before I started, fire up Linux, right? It's really cool stuff. And like, it just seems like it's easier than ever. It's easier than ever to get started. And what else did we have here? We in Azure, where's our Azure? Here it is. I think I'm good. I don't think there's anything on here that's really, I used to be able to use Azure Mask. Is that like still? Yes, it is. Okay. Is it on? No, we'll toggle the mask. Oh, look at that. Kind of worked. Kind of sort of worked. So let's bring this back over. Let's go back to where we started. This is the virtual machine created in Azure that I connected to. Right. We saw the public IP. We were able to pull the public IP. You were saying that you think we could probably find if we looked at the deployment, which is somewhere else in the dashboard, I could find it maybe?
Yeah. So if you go to the resource group.
Okay. So yep, resource group. So, here it is right at the top.
Yep.
And okay.
You got deployments there. There you go. Okay. So from there, you should have one deployment, which is the VM you created.
Yeah.
And then inside of there,
I remember this.
If you look at inputs on the left.
Interesting. Okay. And I love how Azure Mask came in and did this. That's cool. Now look, Azure Mask I think has had some trouble. I don't know that it's getting, I'm not 100% sure the state of it right now, but admin username.
Yeah.
So if I copy that to the clipboard, because I don't really mind if this gets shown.
We've already shown it.
Yeah, we've already shown it. Like everybody knows. There it is, Azure user. So I could have rescued myself.
Yeah. Passwords, not so much.
Right.
Like that public or that private
Yeah.
key
The
that's kind
private
of
key.
lost. Yeah.
They said that too. They said like,
Oh,
this
sure,
is it
sure.
for the private key, but the public key. So I
That might
could,
be, oh, that's in there. Cool.
it's not sensitive. It's
No.
my user's public key. Oh, undefined. Interesting. Okay. Not really in there.
Uh,
I could go get it though.
yeah.
But that public key is not sensitive. I could put that public key on any number of Linux machines as a user authentication method and
Right.
say, and then from my machine, I SSH in because I have my private key. That's the important sensitive one. You cannot lose that. You cannot compromise it. No one can have it. It is yours. But I could, I could then create a different public private key pair just because it might be nice to manage them separately. And we could go throw that onto GitHub and say, I want to access GitHub. I want to access GitHub through SSH now. I don't want to use HTTP anymore. And some organizations actually require this. Like you might go to work somewhere and they might say, they might not even have GitHub. They might be using GitHub Enterprise. They might not. They might be using any other Git solution. Heck, they could even be hosting it on their own boxes. And I did work somewhere where it was self-hosted Git. And yes, you needed an SSH key and they had to write a whole document and you had to create an SSH key. And because it was long enough ago that they were like, okay, install Git. Now open Git Bash. Now create a key there. Now get the private key, right? And what I'm saying to the world is like, I don't want to use Git Bash. I want it built in. So with the little time that we have left, I'm going to open Git Bash.
Okay.
And so what is Git Bash? Git Bash is a Cygwin, which I'm not going to have a ton of time to explain. Cygwin is like a Windows-based terminal that was very popular in the olden days and emulated a Unix instance. So many of us learned to use the Git command line in Git Bash. I have been saying for many years now, this is no longer necessary. That's been my opinion for many years. I do think in the very early days of Git taking over the world, using Git from the Windows command line was problematic. I felt like that was resolved very quickly. Like I haven't used Git from Git Bash for a very long time.
I agree.
But many people still do. And some people even think like they have to. I think it's weird. So if I come in here, is it ready to go? It is. And check out how I do appreciate this. This is new. I'm not sure how this got configured this way. I literally don't know. But this seems to be tying into the Windows service. So there may have been a change to this Git Bash distribution in Git for Windows, in modern Git for Windows. That's awesome. What used to happen before and why I went through this whole odyssey is if I would come in here to create an SSH key and then I would exit Git Bash, if I went to Task Manager, an SSH agent instance with a PID, a process would just be there.
Right.
But that's cool. I'm like, that's cool. SSH agents on my machine, but I couldn't use it from Windows command line. That didn't work because there's no SSH client. And even if I tried if I installed OpenSSH for Windows, which you could do, it was a really tedious process to tell it, okay, your SSH agent is this process right here. Like that's real tedious. So then what's the natural thing to do? Go open Git Bash again. When I open Git Bash again, I would go look at Task Manager, and now there's a second SSH agent. And I would have to add the keys again because the first SSH agent is hanging in the ether. Then I'd close Git Bash. Then I'd open Git Bash. And now there's a third SSH agent. And I'm like, okay, that's ridiculous.
Right.
So in looking to solve the problem, I stumbled across OpenSSH is native in Windows 10. And that's where I wrote here. That's what I wrote here. I was happily using it in Git Bash until I ran into a problem.
Yeah.
But this may also be resolved because I've just walked in here and found my SSH keys from the OpenSSH service that's built into Windows. So they may have hooked in.
Which would be nice.
which would be nice.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's true. I didn't do anything to set this up, so it's kind of sounding like a good inference, but something maybe we could go take a look at. So there you go. We spent a whole hour talking about SSH, but I actually think it's kind of cool, and you can get addicted to working this way. To like, hey, all I got to do is open my terminal and just start type SSH, and then boom, I'm in. And once you really get the finger speed going and learn some commands to change folders and to change directories, as you can see, remember how to write to a file
Right.
from command line, how to exit Vim, like once you, or you can
And
install,
save.
yeah, I remember how to save, remember how to do. It's a really neat, and a good skill set to have these days.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. One of the just thing to mention, there's that when you're in Visual Studio, and I'm not sure code does this, but Visual Studio definitely does. You have the options of where you want to run your code, right? Am I running it in like a Kestrel, or am I running it inside the the command prompt there? But one of those options is to run, especially when you're doing .NET code, is be able to run it in your WSL. So it basically, can all kind of mimic what you're doing when it lines up in your app service that's running in Linux up in Azure. So
yeah. So maybe the final lesson of the day is probably that as sad as this is, I think we're going to exit out of our sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And but this is a good way to wrap it up, I think, is let's get rid of that resource group. And getting rid of the resource group is the simple, quick, easy way to, I like to do this, group a bunch of stuff that I'm going to use for a little bit all in one resource group. And then I probably have command lines. I know I have command lines to do this. I used to have them all memorized. And then I'm just going to delete the resource group. And this is probably something that I'm going to go ahead and do. And I love how it says here, this is a very important Azure tip for everybody. Enter resource group name to confirm deletion. Now, no one ever does this. No one actually does this. No one ever comes here and types. What they used to do is they used to come here and very carefully highlight this and copy. But look, even the portal folks got tired of it too, and they gave us a copy button. So you come here, you click copy, and then you right click and you click paste. You don't, these instructions are old, they're out of date. No one does that. That's not true. You can type whatever you want, but I probably never have. So this is just to be like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Because they're gone. They're going away. So this is a great tip. If I were to have created custom service principals, like identities and so on, then make sure you remember to clean those up because they've got nothing to do with resource groups. That's right. That's right.
Yep.
That's a great tip and probably something that I forget about all the time.
Yeah. Think of how often we do an app registration, right? That also winds up in there.
Is that going to be sitting in the Azure AD maybe?
Yep.
I don't know. So yeah.
Under your app reg.
Oh, I didn't. I don't think I created one, did I? I didn't.
No, I don't think you did either.
Yeah. But no, that's actually a whole fun thing too, is how with Azure AD, you can, and I'm pretty sure you can do this with the free versions. I think we looked into all of this, is if you wanted to play around with web development and identity, sure, you could like set up your own identity servers. You can. It's not even that hard. Or you can register a few identities in here. I could even like register yours, Rich, and then now, boom, you can log into my web application. And it's kind of cool because it gives you a little bit of a head start into how this stuff works for your applications that you're going to do at work, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's the nice part around, having an Azure instance that you can go play with and the things that are tied to it.
The last thing we didn't talk about too much today is Azure Mask, which I just want to make sure I drop in here. And then maybe this will remind me to get all of this. It's into the YouTube page. Azure Mask is an extension that I used today, which is its original intent was to mask sensitive values in your Azure subscription as you're using them. For example, my actual, just still popped up there. My actual email account was masked. And then when we were in a resource group, the subscription ID was masked and stuff like that. and it's pretty cool, and it's super useful if you're streaming. I remember there being some weirdness. I don't know how long it's been touched in a while, and you can use it in a Chromium-based browser, which is a fancy way of saying Edge is included, but you can actually use it wherever. I don't think it's been updated in a while. I don't know that it has to be, though. And then there's been some weirdness where it wasn't allowed in the store for a while. I don't know what happened with that. I don't want to gossip because I don't know what happened. So that's it. Managed identities,
Cool.
tied to resources, and get cleaned up, but custom ones not so much. That is great. That's great. I'm gonna have to play around with that. So thanks, Saduki, for all the tips and for getting me through creating a Hello World file. I really do appreciate that. And Rich, we came on today, and I was like, well, we'll see how it goes, because I haven't done this in a while.
Yeah,
and that's the Dev Talk Show. Like, if you're new, and we said it yesterday, that's what we do. I like to not waste people's time, so I kind of like to know at least a little bit of what I'm doing. But at least after we get after the initial bump, it's like, well, let's try some stuff.
Definitely.
So that's
cool.
it. I got to run.
You got to go. Hopefully.
Yes. Great question here from Saduki. Are you guys going to do more of these morning coffee editions? So it turns out that this is probably the time that we have clear over the summer. Yeah. The only thing that I don't think we have is specific days, right? Is we're not quite at the point to say like it's every Monday, it's every Wednesday. And I don't know that that's tough, because you might have something going on at work. I might have something going on at work. Right. Yes, we absolutely have been trying this format. We've been enjoying it. I think the hour has been kind of nicely constraining in a way.
Yeah.
And as Mark Seaman says, constraints liberate. That's someone we'll talk about another time.
There you go.
And but it is 9 o'clock, so for me, it's time for stand up. It might be for you as well. Go meet with your team. Let them know what you're doing today, and get rid of those blockers. And boy, did I just come up with like an exit line for us. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see you all next time on the Dev Talk Show.